All right, today we're going to break down a really fascinating worldview that comes from a 1990 speech by a Japanese spiritual leader. It's this whole system that tries to blend science with spirituality, and it kicks off with a pretty wild question. What if our reality is way, way smaller, and our lives much, much bigger than we ever imagined?
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll get into the core metaphor for reality itself. Then, we'll look at what that means for your life's purpose. After that, we're going to uncover this idea of an invisible war for your soul. And finally, we'll check out the systematic, almost scientific path that's offered for salvation.
Okay, so to even begin to get our heads around this framework, we have to start with a truly mind-bending metaphor for the universe. I mean, the whole thing. Right off the bat, the speech comes at you with a huge challenge to our most basic assumption, the sheer scale of our existence. It asks you to imagine that everything you know, I mean everything, from our planet to the farthest galaxy, is actually contained inside a surprisingly small space. And this is the core concept right here. The speaker argues that our entire three-dimensional universe is like a single soccer ball. But that ball, it's just sitting inside a vastly larger reality, the spiritual universe, which he compares to the massive Tokyo Dome Stadium. So we're the ball, not the stadium. And here's the kicker. From this point of view, humanity's greatest scientific achievements are basically like a child's game. You know, we're so proud, so busy meticulously measuring the dimensions of our little sandbox, and we have absolutely no idea there's this huge, wide world just on the other side of the fence. Okay, so if our entire physical world is just a temporary, tiny space, this little soccer ball, what does that mean for us? Why are we even here in the first place? Well, according to this worldview, life on Earth is no accident at all. It's a deliberate assignment. The idea is that we are actually spirits from that bigger reality who choose to enter a baby's body to undergo a limited period of what's called soul training before we eventually return. This completely reframes the whole human experience. Life isn't just a journey, it's a test. And it has a deadline. So if you know this, hardships, they're no longer random tragedies. They become applied problems, challenges that are designed specifically for your soul to grow. To really get across the urgency of his movement, the speaker uses this fantastic analogy. He compares their spiritual progress to kids who put off their summer homework. You know, after a long vacation of kind of slow progress, they suddenly hit the end of August and have to cram everything in before the deadline. He says that frantic rush, that is the feeling of an impending spiritual new school term. And this all points to a really powerful idea. If you know you're returning to a spiritual reality, you can plan your life by working backward from that moment. By starting with the end in mind, that moment you leave this world, the path to a meaningful life, he says, becomes crystal clear. But this purposeful life, this soul training, it's not a walk in the park. In fact, this worldview says there's a central conflict, an invisible battle, that it claims is affecting almost every single one of us. And the scale of this conflict is presented as just staggering. The speaker claims that a huge majority of people, we're talking 7 or 8 out of every 10, are unknowingly influenced by what he calls evil spirits. So this isn't some rare problem. In this worldview, it's the norm. You see, the spiritual world isn't just one thing. It's a battlefield. On one side, you've got positive influences, your personal guardian and guiding spirits. But on the other side, you have a vast army of evil spirits, which are described as being way more numerous and way more active in our world. And get this, the effects of this spiritual war are supposed to be physically observable. The speaker even provides a kind of diagnostic checklist for when a negative spirit has been removed. A person's face might suddenly get a healthy glow back. A super serious person might start cracking jokes. And others will notice, right? They'll come up and ask, "Hey, did something good happen to you?" So if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, it isn't just about having vague faith. Instead, the speaker lays out this highly systematic, almost scientific method for achieving salvation. This is where it gets really scientific. The spiritual power of the teachings is literally quantified. Reading the books, that provides a baseline level of what he calls light. That's 1x power. Listening to a lecture on a tape, though, that gives you 3 times the power. But attending a live lecture, like the one this speech comes from, delivers 6 times the power of just reading the book. It's a very clear hierarchy of spiritual punch. And all of this builds towards a truly mind-blowing idea, a spiritual equation. The theory is that healing isn't some mystical, random thing. It's a predictable, cause and effect process. The speaker actually believes a formula could one day be created to calculate the exact amount of light needed for someone based on things like the spirit's power and how long it's been influencing them. But this isn't just about fixing one person at a time. It's all part of a grand strategy for all of humanity. The logic is laid out like a simple feedback loop. Step 1, you help living people by removing evil influences. Step 2, those people, now free, avoid going to hell when they die. Step 3, the population of hell actually shrinks. And finally, step 4, with a smaller hell, there are fewer evil spirits that can emerge to bother the next generation. It's about systematically reversing a negative cycle. So in the end, it's not just about saving yourself. The whole thing is framed as a collective, strategic effort. The mission is to build this massive light supply system, the books, the tapes, the lectures, powerful enough to heal not just our world, but the spiritual world that surrounds it. So, what do we take away from all this? This worldview from 1990 is a really powerful case study. It shows how believing in a vast, unseen reality, a whole Tokyo Dome to our little soccer ball, can create a very specific, systematic, and urgent mission in our physical, day-to-day lives. It kind of leaves us with a big question to think about. How does what we believe about the unseen world shape our actions in the one we can see?